So hello everyone and welcome to a special episode of the SWW show. I'm Mike. Don't worry, we got rid of AJ. We buried him someplace. We're not quite sure where, which is a good thing. But today I have a special guest with me. Would you mind going over who you are and where you work?
Yeah, so my name is Luigi Gordicho. I am the owner of a small studio based in Rochester, New York called That Indie Studio.
I did appreciate your name a lot when I saw the name of the studio. I was like, okay.
It's just one of those things. So it was like, it took us forever to figure out a fun name, and it kind of stuck out, so yeah.
So you guys are a pretty new team, right? So we're going to talk about the Last Hex tonight, and this is your first game as a studio, right?
Yeah, so it's currently just me. I have a couple other people that work alongside me, but they're kind of more of a contract-based freelancers.
Okay.
Yes, the Last Hex is our first main title that we will be releasing.
Nice. So going into your history as we get into the game then, did you have a history of game dev then, or is this kind of like your first, you're jumping in there?
So I have a history of development. I've been developing for over 10 years now. I was in advertising beforehand, and then I currently do creating software, but also exhibit work for museums.
Oh my god, me too.
So, really?
Yeah, I work for a company. We do trade show and museum exhibit stuff.
Awesome. No, yeah. So I do a little bit of that. And so it's I figured I like games. I do know how to code. So why did it take me 10 years to figure out I could just code my own game?
Nice. Okay. So obviously you didn't have. So it's not like a perfect game background, but a very devy background then. So how then at that point did you what made this be the deciding factor of now I'm making the game? Was it just one day you woke up and it was like, okay, it's time?
Yeah, pretty much. As weird as that sounds, it's yeah, might as well figure out how to make a game. Like I said, it's one of those things that I've played games forever, and I used to work in gaming press 8 years ago. So I always went to shows. I always got to talk to the indie devs. I saw that world a little bit. I was like, yeah, I want to be in that world.
I do appreciate how you saw the world. You weren't huh. I can tell you didn't see them a bunch because you notice how every time you see them they have less hair, and you're like, maybe I don't want to be part of that world.
Trust me, the after parties and after the show closing at cons, they just don't sleep. They just don't sleep.
So at GDC, you can always tell when it's Friday at GDC because everyone's just we're just all dead now. No one talk to us, please. So that's good. So the Last Hex then is for your first game, and it's in early access currently. So correct me as I describe this completely wrong. So it's very much like a roguelike card battle system. Is kind of how I think of it.
Yeah. So I call it a deck building RPG with some roguelike elements. So you're building a deck of cards throughout the game. You're going to buy new cards and just pick up new cards that you'll be adding into your deck, and you're going to use that for combat. But you have we take a lot of RPG elements. So we have equipment system and a stat system. So each card has a certain stat associated with it. So the higher that stat through equipment or some other means, the better those cards are going to be. So you'll see your cards physically get better and better over time, depending on how you quote-unquote level.
Okay.
And then the whole point of the game is to go across the map. You'll find cities where you can buy new things, heal, train. You'll find events, which are kind of good and bad situational events that we put you in to kind of break up the combat, but it gives you something other than fighting things. And they can be good or bad for you. It's kind of your choice how it ends up playing out. And then the rest are fights.
Okay, so my first thing I kind of want to dig into this, because I think it's a very interesting idea of how you combined a lot of these systems is, so inherently you have you're doing 3 different genres that are very independently very intense genres. Like it's like you chose like simple puzzle game, simple shooter, and this. You chose like 3 extremely on face value complicated genres. So how did you kind of like find your balancing act between them? Of like, how do you make sure it wasn't just an RPG with a deck in comparison to like all 3 of them kind of having their own importantness to them?
Yeah, so we kind of picked some of the things we liked about each genre. So like, say like the RPG side of things, we don't. It's kind of a very. There's not a lot of story. It's just more of like, hey, you came across some berries. Do you want to eat the berries? Do you want to leave the berries alone? So it's very minimal story. But we liked it because it gave you something to do. But then the other thing from RPGs that we take is the equipment system. So you have 7 slots. You're going to buy equipment, change out equipment as you go. And then the other thing that RPGs are known for are stats. Your health, your strength, your dexterity. That all kind of powers you through the game. So like we just took like bits and pieces from each genre that we thought could fit really well with each other, and ran with that.
Okay. It's just interesting because again, you chose like these inherently very meaty things, and I know that's probably a purpose of like these are your tastes, and it's very interesting because like modern times now, like I feel like almost every roguelike now is almost an RPG. Like that's just almost like that genre is slowly morphed into the how everything's going RPGified, but especially roguelikes because it's the idea of permanence. Like you have to have something there, and that the easiest thing for that is an RPG.
Yeah.
So deck building though, and this is where I do want to jump into that. Deck building games are inherently like really hard to balance, and especially as I believe your quote is something like you have 350 playable cards.
Yep.
So
yeah, about that right now. Yes.
So you know I'm gonna go with this one is.
Yeah, but how do we balance?
And even better, I know for a fact, how did you start with probably the thousands of cards you started with to end up at 350?
So as for that point, we don't have that many cards. We have a couple extra cards that we're looking to do, and there's a lot of like specific cards that we want to implement. But it's actually a lot harder to come up with cards that are different enough from each other that they don't feel too samey.
So it just feels like I'm adding points to level up, or for variety's sake.
Yeah. So it's like we don't want all the cards to be exactly the same. We want each one to be a little different. So having that variety is a little tough to build out. So that's why we don't have the thousands of cards, but I think we have plenty of cards. But as far as balancing, yeah, it's been a rough but fun journey for that. The main reason is that a lot of card games, the cards don't change that much. Like you can either the cards either don't change or you have a set upgrade path for a card, like 1 or 2 upgrades. For us, the cards can get however strong you want them to get, just by your stats. So like I said, if the more stats that you have, your cards are just going to keep getting better and better and better. So there's really no cap to how good your cards can theoretically get. So balancing that is kind of, we took a lot of time to do that. But we came up with a rating system for cards. So like a certain status effect of a card is worth a certain amount of points. And then we put up what we think where a player should be at any given point in the game, as far as like a rating.
Okay.
So like at the end, we have a specific end game rating where we think players should have, say, like 20 stats. They should have 4 or 5 energy. They should have so much health to viably be safe in that area. And so we kind of built the cards around those ratings. Like, okay, if the player is around this rating, the card should be this good. And so like you're kind of buying points for the cards, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So like attacks, like if a card does a certain attack and a certain status effect, kind of buy points into those things, and up until whatever that rating is. So yeah, that's kind of how we were doing it, and that's how we also did the monsters themselves. Like, so each monster, there's certain levels of monsters. So each level, so like the last level of monsters is technically the hardest rating. So each of their cards match that player rating on what the cards technically should like, as powerful as they could be. But as a player, you can go above that cap, and your cards can get even stronger. But we just, like I said, we tried to find the average, quote unquote, like power level of the player for any given point in the game, and that's kind of like the median for where the cards are balanced.
Okay, so going into that then, what's interesting about your game is, so like the whole shit is you have a deck and then you're facing people with decks, and I feel like the type of games like this where we argue it's like a deck-based combat system, I feel like the meat of these games tend to be like I have a deck and then I'm just facing hordes who are just hordes still. So one of your like selling points is you like all of your enemies have unique decks and abilities to them.
Yes.
Was that always the plan, or did you start out the simpler idea of no, I have the deck, but we're just facing these easier things?
The idea of enemies always having their own like set of cards was always a thing for us. So like every goblin has the same 8 cards, so you can kind of like card count, and you can kind of figure out what they could possibly play next. Or like someone on the orc. The orcs have a really big card, so if that's the first card he plays, you know you're safe for the next 7 cards. To kind of play around. So we kind of always had that in mind as far as like a roguelike, because roguelike is very pattern-based games. Like, you learn enemy patterns, you learn how they act, you just may not see them at the exact time that you saw them in your last run, but at some point you're going to come across them, and if you remember the pattern, they're usually easier to beat. So we always had that in mind. The powers came pretty late into development, actually. It was, I don't want to say it was a little stale, but it was a lot of just hit things in the face kind of a thing. So people just never, it was based off people like not attacking, not defending, but just always hitting something because they didn't have anything to like play around with or be worried about. So we added these powers to kind of force players into specific playstyles with each monster.
So otherwise, was the like when you were placing before, was it literally like, okay, I have these 3 cards, I just always want these 3 cards, I don't care about anything else, basically, no matter who I was facing, was the concern?
Exactly. So like, yeah, so like we have some enemies that are like, okay, whatever cards I have, I'm just gonna play. But there are some enemies that are like, that like there's the succubus who has a charm effect. What the charm effect does is there's a certain % chance that your card is actually gonna hit you. So you may not want to play your big card because you may hurt yourself really badly. So you're tempted to play your smaller cards for less damage and have that chance of not hitting yourself for that ridiculous amount of damage from that one card you have.
So digging into the succubus thing, because on face value to me, like something like the succubus, for example, has the immediate concern of just being really tedious to fight then? Which I assume it's in some capacity of its health or its damage you accounted for in the back end, but like to me, like that immediate ability is like it's a cool, really idea on paper, but it's the instant concern of, oh, well, let's hope they don't just always just play the really low damage and this turns take forever now.
Yeah, so there are some enemies that we specifically built to do that, to be kind of more of a not annoyance, but like a
Zubat.
Yeah, sure, we can go with Zubat. Just something that you just kind of have to deal with when it comes up, to kind of like change up styles throughout the game. So not everybody is always building a specific way, but you kind of have to be more well-rounded to some degree to deal with certain scenarios. So there, like I said, there's a couple enemies that are essentially just built around kind of harassing a single playstyle. Because it's as much fun as it is to build a deck that is very synergistic, which you still can do even with these enemies. But it's just you have to think of it in a slightly different manner of how to use what you have to kind of overcome this small hiccup that you found.
Okay, that's very interesting. And again, it's just very interesting because, like, to me, again, when I play deck games, to me, it's like here's my ace strategy. Okay, I built this machine. Now let's just see the machine wreck everyone until I hit a wall, and then I build a new machine. It's kind of like the concern always with a lot of deck games too.
Yeah, and like we try to minimize that, but again, it's a lot of randomness. So I can't promise that you're not going to find that one enemy that kind of goes against your deck like 4 times. I can't promise you that you're not going to see it like 4 times in a row. That's the whole point of like roguelikes. It's kind of random. But as I was saying before, there's, like I said, there's only a handful of enemies that we kind of threw in to do that. So the chances of them showing up is a little bit less than some of the quote unquote easier enemies.
Okay. So now I think is the fun part of what we got to talk about. So you're building this really complicated game, this with a lot of systems behind it, and it's a lot of content in it, and you're in early access at the exact same time. So I want to talk about like that experience. So early access, I'm just because of the nature of your team, I'm going to assume at least from the beginning was at least always your plan, or in some capacity you thought about it.
Yeah, early access is kind of always what we wanted to do.
Okay.
Mainly because it's a game that needs a lot of balancing.
And you just need bodies thrown at it.
You need bodies thrown at it, and like it's from our end, we need to make something that is stable and you can run it fairly well. But at the same time, that's what I love being an indie company, is because the community is much more forgiving for things that kind of can go wrong in a game. But at the same time, as long as we put out something that's like fixing bugs quickly or patching things weekly, it kind of helps having those bodies to help find those small issues that we just never thought of, or that we just completely overlooked because we're too busy testing this other thing for like 5 hours. Yeah, so like I said, early access is kind of always one of those things that we definitely want to do.
So I know you have it interesting too, because depending on the story too, you have staggered releases right now in some capacity. How is that? Like, so you're getting like some bodies through the game now, right?
So we're going to early access May 10th.
May 10th.
Yes, but right now we have a lot of testers, and we've started reaching out to streamers and that such.
Right. So my whole sticker with that one is kind of like the bodies now. At least you've seen kind of what you could talk about. Is the game at least kind of like where you expected it to be, or have you like is it like even though from the limited PvP you're like, oh, there's a lot, like just getting more bodies, you're like, wow, there's just changes or these other things we didn't expect to like change plans, for example.
So far no. We had about 30 alpha testers for like the past like, I don't know, I want to say 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And we have like a Discord, and we have a lot of open communication. We have all these ways to track bugs. So far, with like some of the newer testers and even some of the streamers that we've seen play, everything seems to be going really well. Because we actually stopped putting content into the game about a month and a half ago.
Just the self-restraint right there is just really impressive, I gotta point out.
That's working in software. It's kind of one of the things. Like you need a drop dead day. You need a point where you're just not adding new stuff in, and you're just testing.
Welcome to game dev. We add stuff the night before as you like this thing's on fire and you hit launch.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that I'm not like watching. Me and my wife watch streamers play the game, and we're like, oh, that shouldn't work that way, or I'm glad he didn't see that one error. I'm going to fix it right now and push up a build, and hopefully they won't notice.
And by the time they die, it'll be good.
Yeah, so it's like it's one of those we're catching things, but nothing is like destroying the game. It's not crashing. It's not like erroring out. Things are still working as intended. It's just more of like the small like cleanup things, making things a little bit more prettier, more animations, fixing up typos and things of that nature. So it's kind of like the cleanup phase for us now.
Again, the most selfish train I've heard of anyone going to early access. I'm going to be honest with you, it's very impressive. Everyone I talk to who's running to early access, they're like, we go into early access in a week, I still have to build this final boss, I'll be back.
Oh yeah, so yeah, like I said, the software background kind of helped me there because like I know what launching a product is like from a non-game development standpoint, and I know how hectic it's going to be. And I'm sure once we launch, we're gonna have those oh crap moments, and then like patching like day one or as we find things. So I'm fully expecting that, like 100%. Like I'm sure at least 100 things are to come up first day we launch. But like I said, right now from what we're testing, we're not seeing a lot that will cause too many issues.
That's good. So do you have, at least going into, like, as you launch them, do you at least have in your head, which you know is going to be thrown away, a plan of, like, okay, like the next stuff is content and stuff, or are you just waiting and seeing kind of reaction to decide your road plan?
Yep, so we actually have a bunch of things we are actively working on in a separate build of the game that we're looking to add in post-launch.
Okay.
So there's extra content that we didn't have time to make, and like again having that self-restraint and not pushing what we think we can do before launch and not break the game. So we do have a lot of things that we currently are looking to add post-launch, but at the same time we probably take like a couple weeks, like a month, just to see how things settle out with the actual current build of the game, like the actual released version of the game. And then kind of announce the new stuff. But yeah, essentially just getting that first month or so of making the current build stable enough and fixing all those issues first before even releasing some of the new stuff that we have planned.
Okay. Nice. So what is as public as you want to speak, because I don't think I've seen stuff about it, do you have like a rough time, like you plan to be in early access for a year, for 6 months, or is it more of a wait and see technique in that way?
I always see it as a wait and see kind of a scenario, because if things are going well and like there's not as many issues as we thought and all that fun jazz and the reviews are good and like everything just seems to be in like an up and up, I think that definitely calls for a shorter early access. But if things go wrong, it could be a longer early access, sitting in early access. So no, yeah, I think it's definitely a figure it out as you go kind of a thing.
Okay.
Well, for us anyway.
That's true. It's just very interesting. Just always hear like the different ideas of early access, because inherently with early access too, it's very much like each person has their own shtick of like. I've heard even other stories of like people making like a lot of like strategy games, and the whole shtick is like we're throwing in early access, knowing that maybe it's perfect the next day we might do it, but just the early access, even like the double release window of the early access, is kind of like becoming a trend for a lot of people too, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and like I said, everybody does early access a little differently, and everybody has their own reasoning for going into early access when they do. So yeah, it's always, like I said, it's always fun to kind of see what early access means to different people.
Well, I am excited. I have poked at the game. I'll be playing it some more, and don't worry, I will send you bug reports exclusively publicly on Twitter as I get them. Just that way, it's all in the open.
I mean, that's fair. I've seen worse.
I've seen worse. That's actually really bad if you've seen worse. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Well, because like, oh my god, so this is one time I was posting on Reddit, and I meant to copy a link to post in the game dev subreddit, and I accidentally posted a URL to download the game for free, and I didn't know for like a day and a half. So a lot of devs got their hands on our game for unrestricted access for like a day and a half. So like I said, I've done dumber things. So
That is
Getting bug reports on Twitter is
the least of your
it's not as
concern.
bad. Yeah.
But again, I would like to thank you for your time to talk about the game, kind of go over what's going to be like and stuff too. I had some fun when I played it. I want to play it a lot more, and I'll tell you some good stuff. And by the time we record our next episode, I'll have more thoughts on the game too, going into it. But again, it is the Last Hex on May 10th. You're on like every storefront besides Epic Games Storefront, it looks like to me, on PC.
Yeah, so we're looking to do definitely Steam. We do have Humble Bundle. We have a Discord store in beta, but we're not sure what we're gonna do with that yet. And then also itch.io.
Whew. That's a lot to like simultaneously do it.
It is, and so like we've been talking with like Green Man Gaming, but we might stagger that one out a little bit more, just because like what you just said, it's a lot of things to keep track of, especially on a release day kind of scenario. So we'll keep slowly adding more stores, but we're gonna stick with at least those initial 4 for now. And
then your social media, is it that Indie Studio on Facebook? Is it on Twitter also?
Yep. That Indie Studio, Facebook, Twitter, and also our website.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for joining me for this discussion about the Last Hex. And remember, everyone, go check it out. Tell everyone what you think. You can find me on Twitter at Mikey_Maroney. And do you have a personal Twitter also?
Actually, I do not.
Okay. So then, just follow the studio then.
Yes, please.
And then tell the studio what you think about the game. So again, we'll catch you guys next time.
Enjoy.